The original Gorn was part of a viral sensation of VR games around 2017 along with Job Simulator, Beat Saber and Superhot to name a few. And I remember seeing Gorn and thinking that obviously it looks very violent, but not something I would necessarily enjoy. That is until I actually tried it and discovered it was really good fun and pretty imaginative. But the movement system back in the day was awful, and it was also something that never really kept my attention outside of 20-minute workouts to mess around with things like low gravity in the custom arenas. Now when it comes to Gorn 2, I approached this game expecting to have a very similar experience, and on the surface it obviously is a very similar game, but once I started playing Gorn 2 I actually couldn't stop, right until I completed the game and hit the final boss, and I absolutely loved every minute. The graphics are excellent, the movement system now works as you would expect in any other VR game and has every option every VR game has, and while the story isn't overly interesting, the theme of each of the 5 arenas, the varied boss encounters and the dialogue are all great, and it always made me smile. The combat challenge was pretty high due to the various environmental things like a randomly swinging spiked pendulum, a block you can drop on the enemy's heads each time you give it the thumbs up, a spinning sort of grinder that sits in the middle of the arena that eventually rips enemies apart, the standard spiky grinders, walls that have mouths that you need to stick people in so they can be eaten, and there's obviously lots of fire. And I basically never lost interest for the entire 3 hours I played it for, which is the only real downside to Gorn 2. Then there's the weapons, which range from the standard swords, axes and nunchucks and knives to hammers with springs, a massive tree trunk style sword, a sword that grows in length every time you get a kill and gets smaller if you get hit, a blood-draining rocket knife, which was actually brilliant fun to use, a morning star with dynamite, a bow with randomized arrows that can either be solid metal fists, balloons, explosive arrows, and there's just so much more. There's even some guns which make a return from the first game like hand cannons and some extremely cool nail guns. On top of all this you have potions that can slow down time, speed up movement, which was absolutely crazy in VR, telekinesis abilities to literally rip your enemies apart, and then you have the in-game challenges to complete on certain levels, which I genuinely just love doing. The boss fights were always a good challenge too, and they always had some sort of new mechanic needed to take them down. As an older VR gamer, this is normally something I doubt other older VR gamers would play or be interested in, but aside from the short playtime for the story itself, I think it's absolutely brilliant fun, and let's be honest, a game like Gorn can only exist in VR. Gorn's 2 use of scale in VR is absolutely excellent too, from being shrunk into a tiny dude that the enemy want to stamp on to being a literal giant, which can change the gameplay dynamic completely, and it makes you feel tremendously powerful. I literally loved playing it, but the downside is I doubt I'll play it again now for quite some time now the credits have rolled. It's a fantastic VR fuck around playground full of so many inventive ways to kill the enemy, which makes it seriously impressive, and it's clearly been a project of love for Cortopia Studios, who for me at least have improved on everything that made the first Gorn actually good back in the day. I recommend it to everyone who simply wants to have some fun in VR, but I also think there's not much replayability for the older generation unless you have a lot of time on your hands and you want to make your own custom arenas and fights. With all that being said, I absolutely do give this a buy recommendation on Steam and Quest, with the PSVR 2 version coming in summer, and I do look forward to playing it again for that review. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I also dropped a full VR playthrough of Gorn 2 so you can see all this stuff in action, and I'll see you on the next one.